forecasting is no longer a nice to have. It's literally the operating system of the modern grid. The traditional models look backward. AI lets us look forward and learn in real time. And so these historical averages just, they're not going to keep the lights on. And we don't always keep the lights on, but as someone who's struggled with this over the last 4 years, keeping the lights on at their home, this is something that we really, really need to pay attention to in this new world of extreme weather and distributed generation. So,
are you speeding the energy transition? Here at the Clean Power Hour, our host Tim Montague bring you the best in solar, batteries, and clean technologies every week. Want to go deeper into decarbonization? We do too. We're here to help you understand and command the commercial, residential, and utility solar, wind, and storage industries. So let's get to it. Together we can speed the energy transition.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 10 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more. Hey guys, are you a residential solar installer doing light commercial but wanting to scale into large C&I solar? I'm Tim Montague. I've developed over 150 megawatts of commercial solar, and I've solved the problem that you're having. You don't know what tools and technologies you need in order to successfully close 100 kW to megawatt scale projects. I've developed a commercial solar accelerator to help installers exactly like you. Just go to cleanpowerhour.com, click on strategy, and book a call today. It's totally free with no obligation. Thanks for being a listener. I really appreciate you listening to the pod. And I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Go to Clean Power Hour and click strategy today. Thanks so much. Today on the Clean Power Hour, AI forecasting for power markets. My guest today is Sean Kelly. He's the CEO of Amperon. Welcome to the show, Sean.
hey, thanks so much for having me, Tim.
It's great to learn about this industry because I don't know very much. So I'm really all ears on this one. But why don't you start with a little background on yourself, and then we'll dive into what Amperon is up to in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in power markets for my entire career, since the 2 weeks after I graduated from Texas A&M, walked onto a trade floor at Tenaska. At Tenaska, started in ERCOT, the Texas market. Happened to live here most of my life, and am currently residing in Houston, Texas. And went from Tenaska back to Houston, and was at a great company called Eagle Energy Partners, which got bought by Lehman Brothers. I think we all know how that one worked out. And then EDF, Electricidad de France, Trading came in and bought us. I guess what makes me uniquely qualified in this is I've run more than 36 power plants, everything from wind and solar to 5 nuclear assets, including helping with the acquisition and integration of 2 of them, 9 Mile and G'day in New York. Also moved to Chicago in 2013 to help set up E.ON, the big German utilities trade floor, as the first trader in North America. So yeah, been a really fun career on the trading side, which is really helps me understand our customer types. And so I was living in New York, moved there in 2017 for a girl who's now my wife, one of my best trades, or my best trade all time. And
That's awesome.
yeah, and in 2017, you could walk around New York and almost trip over a data scientist. They were everywhere. Data engineers, everyone was a co-founder and disrupting and all of the buzzwords. And that made me realize that all my friends in Texas probably needed to be on top of this latest and greatest AI machine learning. And so the joke between my co-founder and myself is he'll build it and I'll sell it. And so that's what we've been doing here for almost the last 8 years at Amperon.
My gut tells me there's a lot of parallels between financial trading and energy trading. Is that accurate?
There are definitely there are parallels, and then there are also diversions between the two.
Mm.
But I mean, trading is trading. It is always buy low, sell high, and a lot of the financial trading in electricity is very has a lot of similarities to trading other commodities. I mean, a little bit of equities, but you see the same different options available and things like that. So yeah, it's a really fun field. I was the weird kid who wanted to be a trader from the time they were about 8 years old, and here I am. I guess that's just a few years later, still playing with traders.
And what is the status of Amperon? How big is the company and what markets are you serving?
Yeah, so Amperon's the leading energy forecasting company operating at the intersection of AI and energy data. We have raised 38 million in venture capital. We have a little less than 100 employees, and we are active in 23 countries with offices in both Houston and London, but cover the entire continental 48, parts of Canada, Australia, and almost 20 European countries. So just actually signed our first deal in the Middle East. And so we've built a truly global company that can stand up forecast anywhere because as you very much know, wind and solar works in any country. And so our forecast works in any country as well.
All right, cool. Well, what is something about the power market that most people completely misunderstand, Sean?
Yeah, when I started in my career, people ask why I was working at night. And electricity is a physical commodity. These megawatts move across wires in real time. It can kind of be stored in batteries, but it's not like an oil or a natural gas where it can be fully stored throughout an entire season. And so, back to what we talked about a minute ago, people do think of it like stocks or crypto. It's fundamentally different. It's actually more volatile. It's the most volatile commodity out there, as we've seen in some of these crazy events, whether it be polar vortex, winter storm Uri, winter storm Elliott. And so, yeah, it's definitely misunderstood, but it's not going anywhere. Every single industry is extremely tied to electricity, as in without it, no other industry exists. So, in my unbiased opinion, it is the most important thing that we should be focusing on.
Yeah, it's so true. We take electricity for granted, but literally the good life completely depends on it. And the good life goes away pretty much instantaneously when electricity goes away. It's a double whammy too, right? Right? Because then when there's a big outage, like you mentioned in Texas back in 22, 21, electricity prices spike because it's a very rare commodity then, right? And so it's also super painful for those who have electricity. It's not just those who don't have it. But well, what is the problem, I guess, that Amperon was created to solve?
Yeah, so in 2017, when I met my co-founder and we started the company in January of 2018, we knew that there was a lot of changes coming down the pipe. Smart meters had started getting adoption. You used to have back in the glory days, the meter maid breaking in your backyard, getting bit by the dog. Now you just drive around with the truck and you get on a 15-minute read from someone's home. We knew that was happening. We knew renewables were happening, some behind the meter, such as solar. You've got places like Australia, which are all in on that, and then Texas and California and other Western states that are also adopting it. So knew that was coming. EVs. I mean, the Tesla was popular. Other companies were talking about having EVs. Here we are in 2025, and they're absolutely everywhere. That changes what your electricity profile looks like. So we knew all of this was coming. I also knew that much of this was being done in Excel. And there were some of the largest utilities out there that were running these monster models overnight and just praying and hoping that they would get an answer the next morning. But oftentimes the macro would break because there's so many lines of just lines on lines on lines in these Excel spreadsheets. And that's not going to work. And so Amperon was built to deliver a real-time AI-driven forecast so that these traders and utilities can make better decisions.
Now, back in 2018, the definition of AI was maybe different than it is today. I mean, most knowledge workers and prosumers are aware of LLMs, and maybe if you're knee deep in it, HRMs, which is a new model that just emerged. But these large language models, do they have anything to do with the technology that you use at Amperon?
I mean, we look at them from a basically workforce efficiency standpoint. And so that
Yeah.
is something we're using just again to speed things up. We've got a very talented engineering team, data science team. They're always looking at the latest and greatest to continue to speed up their efficiency, how much they can crank out in the hours they've committed to the team. And the way we've looked at it though is the really the machine learning standpoint. And so our first model went live in November of 2018, and machine learning was involved in that very first model. And again, forecasting's hard. We're still always looking at and tweaking the models, but our models have retrained every hour since November of 2018. That is a lot of compute cost. And so we've continuously looked at that. We also know that one forecast is not always right. And so we're always running an ensemble of 4 to 6 different forecasts. And so looking at the simple regression to gradient boosted trees to whatever the latest and greatest is. And so that's why we're really fortunate to have a team of about a dozen data scientists, mostly PhDs, just always dealing with this problem because it's hard. I don't know what's happening in your house. I need to know when you bought an EV. I need to know if you have solar panels. I need to know what a battery is doing. This problem is getting so much more complicated than back in the day when everyone went to work at 8 o'clock. They came home at 5 o'clock. Every home profile looked very similar. Now home profiles are all over the place, and so we've got to stay on top of that for our 150 plus clients.
So let's talk about this from the perspective of, say, an IPP, a company that owns fleets of wind, solar, and battery projects. And let's talk about Texas, since you know that market certainly very well. ERCOT is a unique market. It is now, on a windy, sunny day, 50% wind, solar, and battery powered. Who knew, right? Ginormous red state is going green. Texas eclipsed California on an annual basis now in terms of the install solar, right? I think Texas did 11 gigawatts last year, something crazy like that. But if you're an IPP, okay, you're in the business of selling electricity to various and sundry off-takers. Walk us through that business and what are some of the challenges and opportunities that they're faced with on a daily basis?
Yeah, Texas has done a great job of just really being a pro-business state and getting an entire full generation stack. And so, I mean, we have 40 gigs of wind and a ton of solar. And so for these IPPs that are our customers, independent power producers, for those of you who aren't all in the acronym weeds, what they do with our forecast is they give us said asset. We'll pick a solar asset. And so we'll give them a 15-day, 360-hour forecast for their specific solar installation. And we'll call it 100 megawatts. And we actually give them 5-minute granularity because, as we all know, sun kind of does what it wants to. It's more reliable than wind from knowing when it's going to be sunny versus not, but we've got to stay on top of this. So a 5-minute forecast is the bare minimum that you need to actually understand what you're doing with this, and it's what you can actually go and schedule. And so we tell you on this 5-minute granularity what it looks like so that you can tell, again, we're picking on ERCOT here, ERCOT, what you're going to be showing up with in a day ahead. And so every day by about 10 a.m., you need to tell ERCOT, hey, tomorrow I will have this much solar. And so that's what Amperon's forecast provides to you. And then as we continue, the models rerun every single hour, and you're getting an update there. So very similar with wind, we're telling you we're updating like multiple times per hour on 5-minute cadence what your wind farm is doing so that you can best monetize it and run it accordingly.
And does the IPP know, though, from that model what kind of revenue they're going to be generating?
Yeah, they can take our output that we're telling them and then basically put it with the clearing price, whether it's the day ahead price if they bid it into the forward market, or the real time price if they took it, if they floated it to the intraday, and then they can figure out what their revenue generation is going to be, and figuring out how much money Amperon's helping increase on a return on investment.
So, let's just step back a little bit because I think obviously some fraction of my listeners will be familiar with this energy trading business, but only some fraction. So, in the greater scheme of things, IPPs are signing what kinds of contracts they need off takers, right, to develop the project out of the gate, frankly, right?
Yep.
And who is a good example of a buyer, and then what is the variability in that contract?
So what they're going to do is, you're absolutely right. If I want to build a 100 megawatt wind farm to keep nice round numbers, I want to finance it and not have to foot the entire bill up front. And so the best way to do this is sell a certain percentage of my wind going forward. And so they'll do a PPA, power purchase agreement, and we'll say a 10-year PPA is what they're looking at. The most natural off taker is municipalities and cooperatives, so towns. So they'll go in and say, hey, my town would love to buy the 100 megawatt wind farm. A 100 megawatt wind farm does not produce 100 hours or 100 megawatts every hour,
Sure.
right? It's not a base load. It's probably never going to produce 100 megawatts. That's just the nameplate capacity of it. So I'll go in and say to Tim City, I'm going to give you 30 megawatts, like around the clock, going 10 years. And so I would sell you that, and you would say, great, I have 30 megawatts coming. Well, you then get the money from that, and you're able to go build the wind farm, agreement reached. Well, then you've got to deal with the imbalance. And so if only 12 megawatts are going to show up, I own Tim City 18 more megawatts. And so that's where I need to know with Amperon's forecast that I've only got 12 megawatts tomorrow. It's just not a windy day. I need to go buy that interval of 18 megawatts from the market. So that's how these are being built, and these are how these are being financed. And again, the PPA market, it's not an exact science. It takes away a lot of the commercial upside. However, unless you have just the ability to fork over the full amount whenever you build it, then yeah, it makes a whole lot more sense to go finance that PPA.
And then as the asset owner, I'm getting a guaranteed price on the wind power, but I'm buying grid power at some variable price, and that's also where this kind of a platform comes in handy.
Yeah, you agree to said price, and that's where you look at what the forward curve is trading. So you'd say, hey, 2026 through 2025 is at this number, and said like municipality or co-op will go buy it. I guess examples of other people buying this are obviously utilities will go and buy this. Oftentimes they go build their own fleets just because they're normally quite well capitalized. And so they'll say, hey, I need to have this for my ratepayers. And then you'll also have, now what's really exciting is you've got data centers and hyperscalers who are coming in because they're normally in very good financial shape. And so they're able to come in and really incentivize this. And many of them, as we know, have made green commitments. And so they're more likely to be excited about the wind and solar if they have a green commitment.
Mm.
But they're also trying to figure out just, how to make sure that said data center can run as needed.
And how risky is this business in the greater scheme of things? You mentioned, okay, if I have 100 megawatts of a wind farm, I might be able to sell a contract for 30 megawatts, but the wind goes up and down. Some days it's blowing, and some days it's still for a week. It could be multiple weeks where there's very little wind. And then I'm buying power at some not necessarily known rate. So, yeah, just how risky is this business in general?
I mean, power is a risky business. I mean, again, I've been going through this for 20 years. I mean, you looked at summer 2011 in ERCOT. There was not a lot of wind. It was extremely hot. Power prices were very high. 2014, you had the polar vortex. I lived in Chicago then. That was a rough one. Being a Texan in Chicago, dealing with like minus 40 feels like in Fahrenheit. And so again, not the renewable generation didn't show up as much then. And so this is why having a 15-week forecast is so important. We're able to go out and, for instance, Amperon, you mentioned Winter Storm Uri earlier. So that was a little too near and dear to me from the standpoint of my wife was 6 months pregnant at the time,
Mm.
and the power went out at 2 a.m. on February 15th of 2021. We had no marketing department at the time, so I wrote a really fun blog post on Valentine's Day ideas to do in the dark because February 14th is what day I thought the power was going to go out. It went out at 2 a.m. on the 15th. And so we were able to tell our clients on February 3rd, our meteorologist nailed it and say it's going to get really cold. So multiple IPPs went and bought power at $60 per megawatt. It wound up clearing $9,000 per megawatt those days. So because these different wind farms went and bought power because Amperon, they did their own research too. We don't give full credit here,
Sure.
but they went and bought $60 power and then it traded all the way up to 9,000. And so that's the way that Amperon really, really helps them understand that because they knew they weren't going to be able to supply all the PPAs that they had previously agreed to that week of February 15th. And lo and behold, yeah, it
But
was
you literally were able to predict that the grid was going to fail?
uh, that's not exactly what we do. I knew from my experience that the grid was going to fail and literally put out a blog post about it or a
Hmm.
LinkedIn post about it.
Hmm.
That we were going to lose power and we lost power.
Hmm.
Uh, and then but we put that it was going to be a very, very like epically cold event. And we started saying that at the very beginning of February. So we gave our clients, I mean, 12 days notice. We'll say 10 days notice because it really got dicey on about the 13th. On that Saturday is when prices went well into the thousands, and then it just continued on. It was one heck of a Valentine's Day weekend.
Hmm. And so, who are the winners and who are the losers in a Storm Uri scenario? Obviously, consumers are the big losers. Consumers and business owners, like not having power, is painful and uncomfortable. But yeah, just walk us through that.
Yeah, there were so many losers in that, and I would say the biggest losers, you nailed it. Definitely consumers, those ratepayers at the end. There were people who were on variable contracts at their home that were literally getting their bank account hit like every 15 minutes. That were on auto pay
Mm.
from a company that's no longer around called Gritty. And so like you literally like those were the biggest losers and the fact was the consumers, the business owners, obviously you lose those days of doing business. And then I would also say that anyone, I mean, natural gas plants also didn't all show up. So if they had contracts to sell that they had to go buy those back and that wasn't fun. Getting gas wasn't fun. There weren't a whole lot of winners out of that. I mean, it definitely put the state in a pretty bad situation. I do think it made people more resilient because you look and the temperatures we had. I mean, as you're in Illinois, they're like teens. Yeah, no big deal. Nothing to see here. I mean, when I lived
Yeah.
in Chicago, we had teens for like months at a time. That 2014 and that 2015. But in Texas, our everything wasn't winterized properly because we never seen teens before. And so now, I mean, I think ERCOT and the PUC and the rest have done a really good job of pushing for that winterization. Is now whenever we have a slight scare, it winds up being, or so far, like knock on wood, has been pretty much a non-event.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 10 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855 584 7168 to find out more. Yeah. All right. I could talk about just that one event probably all day, but let's move on. So what sets Amperon apart though from other forecasting companies?
Yeah, I mean, what sets us apart is accuracy. I mean, we're 2 to 3 times better than grid operators, ISOs, TSOs is what they call them in Europe. We cover the whole value chain. We forecast demand, but demand's not the whole story. It's net demand, as you and your listeners know, which net demand is pulling out renewables. So it's demand minus wind minus solar because those show up and make it much easier on the grid. And we also forecast prices. And so you're able to see this across the value chain. And then this is also built by traders and data scientists. Our first hire was a PhD data scientist who's still hanging out with the company over 7 years later. And then my second hire, which the investors thought was a little weird, was a meteorologist. And why a meteorologist? Because forecasting weather is so, so important to this. And so those are some of the things that set Amperon apart. But also, we get a little bit of a late mover advantage. Like I said, we started the company in January of 2018. So many of our competitors are 20 or even 30 years old. We've been cloud native from day one. We've been using AI since day one. This wasn't, oh, we've got a good company, we've got clients, we've got to move out of just running this off our own servers. Oh, we've got to move this out of Excel. Oh, we've got to move this out of. We started with a modern tech stack from day one, and so that's given us a huge advantage, and an advantage that we don't take for granted, and wake up every single day trying to figure out how we can improve our models and pay attention to the next latest and greatest.
And are companies building their own systems for this, or is it all third-party platforms?
It's definitely both. I mean, people will look at it as a core competency, especially utilities, but normally they also want to have a third party come look at us, or look at their forecast. The reason why is, as I mentioned, we have 150 clients and over 40 million meters in the continental United States that are in some way on our platform, either as individual meters or in like aggregations. And so there's no utility that it has 40 million meters. And so we are able to have already seen some things. So when we walk into utility number 4, we've already dealt with utility 1, 2, and 3. And so we already know what their problems are and what they're seeing. And so it really helps the kind of been there, done that before, as opposed to having to start from scratch. So a lot of people will still run their own internal models. We're going up against a lot of 20-year-old models that they just don't trust because of how times have changed, but they'll run those with ours. And as I mentioned, we're a big, big fan of ensembles. And so ensembling is basically just weighting different forecasts together to make one super forecast in layman's terms.
I'm curious if, the weather's changing and you can no longer say, well, let's just look back at the last 10 or 20 years to predict how the weather's going to be in February of 2026. Is that a factor now?
Absolutely. I mean, it is. Weather's gotten crazy. I mean, we're sitting here talking about a 1 in 100 year event. I mean, I remember early in my career, all we were worried about was hurricanes. And the reason we were worried about hurricanes is most natural gas came from the Gulf. And when a hurricane came in, it took out gas production and natural gas went through the roof. That happened in 2005, right when I started. And now, when a hurricane comes, natural gas actually dips because it takes out load, and we don't really drill offshore that much. And so that was really kind of the big change. Now we're sitting here, and I can rattle off, I mean, all of the events starting. I mean, ERCOT 2011 was 62 days of over 100 degrees in Dallas. I mean, we've talked about 2014 with the polar vortex. We've talked about 2021 with Winter Storm Uri. I mean, blacked out a whole bunch of people on Christmas Eve across the East Coast with Winter Storm Elliott. I didn't know what a derecho was until last May when it came and took out a bunch of power lines in my neighborhood, and I didn't have power for 7 days. I mean, you just continue to see these hurricanes are getting bigger every year. It feels like we're saying it's going to be a wilder hurricane season. Wildfires are more prevalent than I can ever remember, just in the last handful of years. So, I mean, things are getting wild. Extreme events are here, and I mean, you just off the cuff reference a 1 in 100 year event, but is it really a 1 in 100 year event if it happens every 2 months?
Yeah, yeah, it is crazy. So, talk to us about forecasting. How is that the role of forecasting evolving as the grid gets smarter and more dynamic? You know, you mentioned electrification of transportation, data centers coming online, and the economy's growing, and it's electrification of everything. It's not just EVs; it's heat pumps, HVAC, industrial processes. So how is your business evolving?
Yeah, forecasting started as a nice to have. And now we're sitting here and it's literally the foundation of daily operations. The reason it was a nice to have is back to what I referenced earlier with smart meters is you just got a data point every 30, 60, 90 days whenever the meter reader came around. So you didn't really know how imbalanced you were. Now we're sitting here and we're getting, I mean, some places are getting millisecond reads. A Nest thermostat or something of that is picking up data all of the time. So the amount of data that we have to take in has gone just absolutely through the roof. And so every single trading strategy, dispatch decision, and even long-term investment depends on it. And so if you think of forecasting, it's really the operating system of the modern grid. And so what we're doing, we knew it was going to be important, but you also, I mean, you referenced not being able to have look at the last 10 years of weather forecast. We also can't look at the last 10 years of load data because I didn't know when I started this that COVID was going to be a thing. It changed what a landscape of a city looked like for as little as 6 months to as much as 3 years, just depending on what the lockdown what rules were when people went back to work. And now we're sitting here in a remote economy. And I mean, we have people in, I think, 17 different countries who work at Amperon because we get to hire best in class, but they work at their house. So their house doesn't look like it would have in the 1980s. And so these are all things that, I mean, all things that are changed that when we started the company, we couldn't have realized were going to hit, but continue to evolve and make things more difficult, which means we have to continue to get smarter.
And what are the limitations that you encounter with traditional forecasting methods, and especially with regard to AI? How have you leveraged AI to transcend that legacy technology?
Yeah, and just to be clear, we still use the legacy. I mean, linear regression models have been around for quite a while, and we still have that as a very core input into our models. But again, being able to automatically weight each model and having it retrain every single hour is not something that you can go do in Excel for 40 million meters. It's just not computationally possible. And so that's where the AI and ML machine learning come into play. And so we're looking at that. We're also looking at weather. Weather has made huge strides here just in the last 2 years, whether it be from like the models that NOAA puts out to you've got the like European AI models with much better granularity. So weather is something we look at. We currently use 4 weather vendors, and we're always looking for like the next latest and greatest. So I mean, weather is something that I'm very, very. I mean, it gets more complicated and continues to get more complicated. So you need better models just to stay at where you were if things continue to progress like this. So that's where the AI really drives in. So weather's been a huge help, and that's why we've got a team that goes in and tests out all the latest and greatest AI models to see which one's going to hit. I mean, the people with the most money in the world, the Nvidias, the Googles, et cetera, of the world are putting out their own models, which is definitely worth diving into.
So tell us a little more about the machine learning, though, to the extent you can, that you're leveraging. It's it's built on top of some other technologies like OpenAI or Claude or Google. Yeah, I'm just curious how that works.
Yeah, so it's not built on top of LLM technology, like some of the ones you mentioned. What it's really doing is going in and weighting our forecast and running different forecasts and saying that, hey, this like gradient boosted tree needs to be with this deep learning model. We'll put in 15% of this one and 17% of this one. And then also different clients are different. Some, especially in the retail energy provider world, will be all residential. Their book looks very different than another client who's all commercial and industrial. So we again don't have someone sitting there saying, "Oh, make sure to use the commercial model." It just automatically goes in and uses the commercial or the industrial model or the residential model. So again, you don't want someone sitting there across 150 customers trying to figure out which model to use at which time. And so that's where the machine learning really kicks in. And again, the data science team has done a phenomenal job of doing this since inception. So I'm glad this isn't something that we kind of freaked out about a year ago and said, "Oh my gosh, we have to use AI in something." One of the coolest, I guess, accolades that we've received is Andreessen Horowitz, who we have no money from, put out their top 50 AI American dynamism companies. And right when AI became a thing about 2 years ago, and there's one company from Texas, and I believe there's like 8 to 12 energy companies, and we were on that list. And so again, we've been using this since very inception, and the machine learning makes all the difference. That's where you get to go against a competitor running in Microsoft Excel, and that's also something that putting on an updated model as quick as weather changes and as quick as sun and wind and all of that changes, as opposed to so many of our competitors were literally running their model once a day, which just doesn't cut it once or twice a day, and that's not going to work with how fast weather's changing these days.
So when the next storm Uri comes, I guess there's a couple of things on my mind about this. The grid is changing. We are hardening the grid now in Texas. We're also increasing the attachment rate of batteries, and the percentage of wind and solar on the grid is going up, but the attachment rate of batteries is going way up. So there's that. So the grid is more resilient. And okay, maybe our forecasting of weather patterns is getting better. So walk us through a scenario for another Uri style event. How much warning does the grid operator have, and how much flexibility do they have? Like, one of the things that's noteworthy about ERCOT is it's famous for being isolated from other ISOs, and so they can't necessarily count on getting a bunch of power from some other pool when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where having reserves really kicks in and incentivizing the reserves to act at the correct times. And then that's also where demand response really kicks in. And so a lot of the load that we're talking about, right? You can't get through a conference, barely get through a podcast without talking to demand growth. So might as well just go for it. But a lot of the demand growth that we're looking at, I mean, yes, we're seeing heat pumps, we're seeing EVs, we're seeing demand growth at your own home. But the real load growth that we're seeing is data centers and large industrial. I mean, again, more things onshore, and just that stuff's pretty flexible at the end of the day. And so that's something that I think that the grid operator is doing a good job of paying attention to. How much the grid operator gets involved. There's something that just passed in Texas called SB6, And that is basically really pushing on data centers to have to behave whenever times get tight. And so I think that's really the next step. So ERCOT, you're absolutely right, is more of an island than most places, but I think they have taken the proper responses from a demand response and incentivizing those large loads to be on good behavior and be good stewards of the grid. So that helps. And also, if it's during summer, it's hot out, and that's when the solar is going wild. So you've got a few hours at the end of the day, kind of hours ending 19 to 21, which is 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at home. And those hours, that's when the batteries come in. So having those, although it be only 1 to 2 hour batteries, ERCOT spreading those out and kind of saying these are the hours I need you. That's really critical to keep the grid running. But ERCOT had a smooth summer. PJM less so. I think they had a dozen EA1 alerts, and they also had something that in June they blew through what they said was their peak load for the entire summer. And that's just because they have such a wide footprint that they did not expect that it would get hot from Chicago all the way to Virginia. And it did. So it had a heat wave that just kind of sat over that whole mid-Atlantic region. And so PJM saw that. But for us, that made people realize that you can't sleep on PJM forecasting either or New York forecasting because it was a hot, hot summer. And those they've had some pretty mild summers for the last handful.
So the grid operator sees these events coming, right? They say, okay, it's going to be super cold. People are going to be running their electric heaters, their gas furnaces, whatever, right? They have some ability to predict what the load is going to be over time. And then if they notice that the load is going to be greater than what the capacity of the grid is, they will send a signal to large off-takers and say, hey, at 4 o'clock tomorrow, we want you to throttle your data center. Is that kind of how that works?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much got it. They go through and they say, all right, the supply stack is this, and we think demand is going to be this. And this is why having a good wind and solar forecast is so important. As you can, for the most part, tell a combined cycle when to show up. I mean, not a lot of coal left and not a ton of nuclear, unfortunately. But those are pretty reliable base loads. And so you've got to understand what the difference is. And so, yeah, you tell people who are enrolled in these different demand response programs hey, 4 p.m., that's your time. Like, go ahead and plan ahead. Go ahead and send your workers home. Like, I need you to do what you can do. So yeah,
And then
that's
if they don't do what they can do, like if that demand response for some reason fails, is the grid smart enough or savvy enough that the grid operator can go, okay, I'm going to shut down this circuit to this major off-taker so that I don't have an uncontrolled outage?
So the way demand response works is it's like insurance. And so I'm going to pay you $10,000 to be on good behavior when I tell you to be on good behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And so the penalties are nasty if you are not on good behavior. So if you're sitting there and you're running a data center and you promised that you'd go from 20 megawatts an hour to 10 megawatts an hour, and I already paid you your $10,000, it's way more than that. But I already paid you your money to back down, then you will back down. And so that's where again, there's not really
I see.
behaving on the grid and very similar in like especially in the east where you have capacity auctions. I mean, the capacity auction was obviously a record in PJM. And so they are saying like you are promising that you will back down then. So yeah, the you don't have to worry about the good behavior. The good behavior's already been paid for.
All right. So let's talk a little more about storage. Storage is kind of the new kid on the block, but there's lots of it, and lots more coming. I think I saw that there's 40% more storage coming in the next 5 years in ERCOT. And of course, ERCOT's just one market. There's incentives in Illinois, New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Connecticut. I mean, many states now, California, have programs incentivizing the installation of batteries. What should our listeners know about batteries as this relates to what Amperon does?
Yeah, I love batteries, and the reason why is early in my career, I got to manage part of the generation fleet for Cobb County, so Atlanta, Georgia, and we had a bunch of hydro as part of Southern's portfolio, and hydro functions very similar to batteries in that you charge it, i.e., pump storage, during low price hours, then discharge and use that generation during high hours. So the battery concept to me has made sense my entire career. And both ERCOT, California, and other places are doing a great job because batteries and storage in general is unique because it's supply and demand. And so the storage lets us shift energy over time, not just balance it instantaneously. And so, as I mentioned earlier, oil, gas, you can store for a season. Electricity, that's not the case, but batteries are slowly but surely helping us get there. I'm very intrigued to see what some of the companies like a Form Energy trying to do like 100+ hour battery are going to do. But what we have right now in Texas is 1 to 2 hours, and in California, 4 hour batteries. From Amperon's standpoint, we're going to tell you what hours to use those batteries. We have well over a dozen clients who are battery operators on our platform. And so what they're looking for is they're looking for a time when, so sun goes down at 7 p.m. ish. It's summer right now. We'll call it right around there. And if wind decides to go down with it, that's when things are going to get dicey because at 7 p.m. families are still home, kids are up, you're using that. Your office also might still be on, your workplace might still also be on. And so those are the hours that used to not get as much love, but now really from that like 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. is where you're paying attention. So you're going to look on Amperon's platform and say, man, wind goes away, the same time solar goes away, and load's pretty high. This is the hour. And so that's what, I mean, most battery operators, optimizers in ERCOT are using our platform for. So it's a new arbitrage opportunity. And again, I love when technology can stand on its own legs, and this is where you want to make batteries as much as possible because back to what you're referencing, we need the more the merrier. We need batteries to be paired with renewable generation to make the grids go. And for operators, this gives them more flexibility in balancing these renewables and also just smoothing out peaks. So but it makes Amperon more important as well. So don't hate that because timing and forecasting become everything.
Hey guys, are you a residential solar installer doing light commercial but wanting to scale into large C&I solar? I'm Tim Montague. I've developed over 150 megawatts of commercial solar, and I've solved the problem that you're having. You don't know what tools and technologies you need in order to successfully close 100 kW to megawatt scale projects. I've developed a commercial solar accelerator to help installers exactly like you. Just go to cleanpowerhour.com, click on strategy, and book a call today. It's totally free with no obligation. Thanks for being a listener. I really appreciate you listening to the pod. And I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Go to Clean Power Hour and click strategy today. Thanks so much. Yeah, I think I wrote in 2024 that the grid needs about 6 terawatt hours of energy storage. And so we're only like 1/10 of the way to that goal, so to speak. And that earn, save, protect tripartite that I drill into my listeners' heads, I think everybody who's a regular listener knows now. Earn from grid services, save by attacking demand and capacity charges, and protect from grid outages. But so storage is super powerful technology, and as prices have come down, it's making it much more realistic to adopt the technology. There was just an article by John Weaver, one of my co-hosts here at the Clean Power Hour, saying that there's good evidence that developers should build all of their projects now battery ready. If not, including storage today, make them battery ready so that you can affordably and quickly attach storage because the price is coming down and the service, the value of storage is so great. And of course, we have an extended ITC on batteries. Well, what else in our last minute together, Sean, should our listeners know about Amperon? I really enjoyed this and appreciate you coming on the show. I definitely am thinking a little deeper about energy trading, and I still don't understand what is machine learning when it comes to energy trading, but we'll have to save that for another time, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I have really appreciated the conversation. I'm definitely going to use the earn, save, protect. That's great. And from a takeaway from my standpoint, I mean, this is no longer forecasting is no longer a nice to have. It's literally the operating system of the modern grid. The traditional models look backward. AI lets us look forward and learn in real time. And so these historical averages just they're not going to keep the lights on. And we don't always keep the lights on, but as someone who's struggled with this over the last 4 years, keeping the lights on at their home, this is something that we really, really need to pay attention to in this new world of extreme weather and distributed generation. So appreciate you giving me the microphone to share this with your audience, and I've learned some from the conversation as well too.
And just to be clear, Earn, Save, Protect was a framework created by Intelligent Generation, a software as a service. My listeners will have caught a recent interview with Jay Marhofer, the founder of Intelligent Generation out of Chicago. So I just have glommed onto that and really appreciate that framework.
I'll have to listen to that one.
Yeah, do check it out. It's not out yet, but it will be by the time this interview goes live. So, all right, I want to thank Sean Kelly, CEO and founder of Amperon, for coming on the show. Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Tell a friend about the show. That is probably the best thing you can do, is just tell a friend. There are many, many people in the energy industry who do not know about the Clean Power Hour yet. So tell a friend and reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love hearing from my listeners. Check out all of the content at Clean Power Hour. And Sean, how can our listeners find you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn, both under my personal and as well as Amperon site. And we have a new updated website out, amperon.co.
Thank you so much. I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 10 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more.